I'm Casie. I'm a speech language pathologist. Most people think that SLPs work with kids who lisp and stutter, and that's true, but that's not all we do. I'm specialized in working with deaf and hard of hearing children as they're developing their first language. I do that by teaching them American Sign Language and spoken English so they learn words, and it's great. When I'm doing this because there's a critical window for language development. Babies' brains are able to absorb language like a sponge from birth to 5 years of age. And if we're not giving them language at that time, we're putting them at risk for language deprivation. So what I'm doing is giving them the building blocks of language so that they can learn to communicate. And I don't care how they communicate. I don't care if they talk or sign or text or tweet or Facebook or whatever. I don't care. My priority is for them to understand words so that they have something to communicate about. Now, it seems obvious that we would sign with kids with hearing loss, right? But this isn't happening. And the reason for that is because medical professionals like pediatricians, audiologists, and speech language pathologists are telling parents not to. And this is creating an epidemic of language deprivation. While medical professionals are excited about hearing aids and cochlear implants, they are disregarding the importance of language. So it's true, cochlear implants are a remarkable piece of equipment. And if you've seen the videos on YouTube or Facebook, you've seen that exciting moment where an implant is turned on and the child hears language for the first time. The parents are excited, everybody's crying. It's amazing because look, the hearing loss has been fixed. But I'm here to tell you that that is not what happens. Those videos are misleading. Children do not turn on an implant and understand speech and language. While my colleagues are relying on technology, what they're forgetting is that these children are missing out on language during this critical language window. 90% of deaf and hard of hearing children are born to hearing parents. And these parents don't know what to do. They are desperate for guidance from the medical professionals they trust. So, when a medical professional tells them, don't use sign language, that's gonna keep your kid from talking, it's gonna be a crutch, parents listen. And because they're listening to advice, they are going down the path of language deprivation. Because of that, these children are at risk for delays in cognitive and social emotional development. So to put this in perspective, I want to talk to you about one of my clients, Mary. Mary is born, healthy as can be. 10 fingers, 10 toes. Her parents are beaming. They are so excited about this new life in front of them. As they're preparing to take their child home to start their new life as a family of 3, a tech comes in to run the newborn hearing screening. Like most parents are thinking, great, let's get this thing over with. But it turns out Mary doesn't pass the screening. The parents are like, wait, what? No. We don't have any hearing loss in our family. No, this has to be a mistake. The tech comes back to replay the test. And they confirm, Mary is not hearing as she should be. The parents are freaking out. They do not know what to do. They are terrified. And as they're trying to process this information, their doctor comes in. And he says, don't worry, we can fix this. And because of those words, for the first time, they look at their perfect baby and think, she's broken and she needs to be fixed. So the doctor goes on, don't worry, we can try hearing aids. We'll see how that goes. And if it doesn't work, we'll try cochlear implants when she's a little bit older. Don't worry about signing, she's going to talk. So at this moment, when these parents are under the stress and they're scared and they don't know what to do, they are already faced with this decision that they have to make. Their daughter is a few hours old, and they're already making a decision that is going to impact their child for her whole life. This is when the advice of these medical professionals is coming into play. And this is when parents decide that they're not going to use sign language because the doctor said, no, the hearing aids are going to work. Our kid is going to talk. Let's just see how that goes. We don't need ASL. And this is the problem. The parents can't be faulted for this. They're doing the best they can with the information that they've been given. They're so worried about fixing the problem, they're forgetting that there's a human being in there, a person who needs to be seen as a whole child and not just as a problem that needs to be fixed. So now that we know that Mary's not going to have sign language, let's put ourselves in her shoes. Here she is. Everybody's smiling at her. She sees mouths moving. And she might even hear muffled sounds as if she's at the bottom of a pool and someone is talking to her. But she isn't hearing speech. She's not hearing people say, I love you, Mary. And because she isn't hearing those words, she's not accessing language. And because she can't hear language, and because you can't see it coming out of your mouth, she's missing it. So to illustrate what is happening in Mary's brain, I'm going to tell you a little story. For all of you Christmas movie fans out there, you'll like this. Okay, so Mary is not going to have access to sign language. So let's picture her brain as Ralphie's house from A Christmas Story. She can't hear what people are saying to her, but she manages to learn that this means bye-bye. Great. The major award, the leg lamp, is proudly displayed in the front window for the neighborhood to see. Everybody comes and they take it all in, but eventually the excitement fades. It's only one light. Sure, they could add other lamps in the house, but they're always going to be restricted by the outlets in the home. Now, let's picture Mary's brain with sign language. So not as Ralphie's house, but as Clark Griswold's house in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. As Mary sees language, Clark is securing a bulb every single time. She's seeing the signing, she's seeing the words, another bulb is put on that house. He first starts just around the roof, but the more she's seeing, the more he's putting bulbs down, until the entire surface of the house is lit up. It is so amazing that people from all over the city come to see. All of the words that Mary is seeing is mapping her brain for future growth. At Griswold's house, she can add strands and add bulbs. There's no limitations. But at Ralphie's, she will always be restricted to the number of outlets in that home. 11 years ago, I graduated from Gallaudet University, equipped with knowledge and passion and ready to work with kids with hearing loss as they learn to read. When I started working at the Virginia School for the Deaf and Blind, I had a rude awakening. There were 6, 7, 8-year-old children enrolling in this school, and they were grunting and gesturing. They had no words. Think about a 7-year-old you know right now with no words. Can you even imagine that? We would never let that happen to a hearing child. And here they are. And it's because they were not given ASL when they were infants. I worked with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who were still trying to figure out the alphabet. They could not read and write a sentence. And that's because they missed out on the building blocks of language during that critical window. All of these kids came from Ralphie's house. And when I saw this, I was shocked and angry. How could this happen? With all of the brilliant medical professionals and educators in the world, how is this epidemic still happening? But it was. And I saw it every day. So I decided to leave the school and get to the root of the problem. I became an early interventionist. Now, I go to these homes, and I'm often the first professional these parents work with after they find out their child has a hearing loss. It's funny because I get into the home and they're only a couple months old, and these parents have already been told not to use sign language with these children. And I think it's so ironic because using baby sign language is all the rage in mommy groups. It boasts cognitive benefits. They're smarter, they tantrum less, they're bilingual, it's amazing. But why is it okay for hearing children to have sign language, but not deaf? Well, it's because of the medical perspective of hearing loss. The medical perspective sees hearing loss as a problem, and it needs to be fixed. They think that if a child cannot talk and listen, that they'll struggle to learn to read and write. They believe that American Sign Language is a distraction. In fact, they often imply that if parents choose to use sign language with their child, they're basically giving up on their kid having a normal life like a hearing child. They believe that these children are disabled. You know what? Screw the medical perspective. I reject a perspective that thinks that babies who can't hear are broken and need to be fixed. I reject anything that supports withholding language. Absolutely not. I reject a perspective that leads parents to believe that if they're using sign language with their babies, that they're keeping them from learning to talk, especially when this is coming from professionals who don't study language and cognitive development. They study pathology and remedy. I reject a perspective that believes that learning a first language other than English puts a child at a disadvantage. I embrace the sociocultural perspective. It's a perspective that doesn't see children as having a hearing loss as being broken. They don't need to be fixed. They're just different. They need to be accommodated. I embrace the ASL English bilingual approach, where language is the priority, and talking, writing, and signing all have equal value. This perspective doesn't care if you read and write in English, but you express yourself in ASL, or that you talk to your hearing friends, but that you use sign language with your deaf and hard of hearing friends. And this perspective is significant because this is how children determine how they're going to show up in this world. Children like Mary can grow up to excel in school and the world. They can have meaningful relationships and fulfilling lives, just like a hearing person. What they need is ASL as infants. So, it turns out that these deaf and hard of hearing babies become adults someday. And do they grow up to like school, make friends, play sports, learn a trade, go to college? Well, I will tell you about the brilliant deaf and hard of hearing friends that I have. Friends who are college professors, FBI agents, medical students, friends that work for the government or for themselves as photographers or hairstylists. Were these friends broken? No. What do they all have in common? Language. Their parents didn't settle for one lamp. They went out and bought every strand of lamp lights that they could find. They cleared out Target of all the bulbs because that was what was a priority for them. Children need ASL to develop language, and medical professionals are saying not to do that. I am an advocate for the parents of deaf and hard of hearing children, and I support and encourage them to refuse to choose. They no longer have to choose between having a child who is going to hear and talk or a child who's going to communicate fluently in sign language. They can have both. They should have both. I'm an advocate in my field to support and encourage medical professionals to educate themselves on the long-term effects of language deprivation and determine if they want to be part of the problem or part of the solution. I advocate for these brilliant, successful deaf and hard of hearing adults to be part of early intervention process so they can be mentors for these families. I'm a speech language pathologist. I'm a medical professional, but I reject the medical perspective on hearing loss. I want nothing to do with the perspective that implies that these children are broken. I do not believe in what these parents are pushing, or what these medical professionals are pushing on these parents. I want to invite my colleagues to cross the aisle and join my efforts in rejecting language deprivation. Tomorrow, when you text your best friend, or join a conference call, or ask someone where the bathroom is, remember you could do that because you were given the gift of language. You can do that because your human right to language wasn't ignored. Thank you.